Some television dramas earn their place in history through spectacle. The Waltons, which premiered in 1972, did the opposite. It earned its place through restraint, through the quiet accumulation of honest moments that made its Depression-era Virginia setting feel less like a backdrop and more like somewhere you had actually been. Generations of viewers grew up believing in that mountain, believing in that family, and feeling the loss each time a character disappeared from the story. What those viewers may not have fully tracked is how many of the actors behind those characters have now left the world entirely, some after long, full careers, others under circumstances that still feel unjust. This tribute walks through their lives, their work, and where their stories ended. John Ritter arrived on Walton's Mountain in 1972, at just 24 years old, playing Reverend Matthew Fordwick, the young preacher whose faith was tested weekly by the realities of mountain life. Born in Burbank, California, on September 17, 1948, Ritter came from country music royalty. His father was Tex Ritter, but his path led entirely to physical comedy and character work that felt self-made. The role of Jack Tripper on Three's Company turned him into one of the most recognized comedic performers on American television, earning him both an Emmy Award and a Golden Globe Award. September 11, 2003 ended that career without warning. Ritter collapsed on the set of 8 Simple Rules at 54, and a thoracic aortic dissection that his doctors had initially misread as a heart attack took his life that same day. Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Hollywood Hills holds his remains. Mary Jackson was already 62 when she took on the role of Emily Baldwin, the sentimental and slightly eccentric half of the Baldwin sisters, whose moonshine and wistful memories of lost love became one of the show's most charming running threads. A native of Milford, Michigan, born November 22, 1910, Jackson brought decades of professional experience to that role, and later appeared in The Exorcist III in 1990. Natural causes took her on December 10, 2005, at 95, and she was laid to rest at Oak Grove Cemetery in Milford, returning in death to the town that first shaped her. Louis Arquette came to the series in 1978 as Jefferson Davis Pickett, the smooth-talking businessman whose schemes reliably complicated life on the mountain in ways the family could never entirely predict. Born December 14, 1935 in Chicago, Illinois, Arquette belonged to what would become one of Hollywood's most recognizable acting families, though his own work, including roles in Alice, Barney Miller, and Delta House, carried its own weight entirely. Congestive heart failure took him on February 10, 2001, at 65, and he was laid to rest at Rose Hills Memorial Park in Whittier, California. Helen Klebe played Maud Baldwin, the more composed counterpart to Emily, bringing a prim and measured elegance to the sisters' shared moonshine and memories world. Born January 6, 1907 in South Bend, Washington, Klebe had already delivered a quietly intense performance in The Manchurian Candidate in 1962, before Walton's Mountain offered her this enduring role, which she took on at 65. At 96, she passed away on December 28, 2003 from natural causes, and was buried at Holy Cross Cemetery in Culver City, California. Joe Conley's Ike Godsey was the kind of character every small community actually needs. The storekeeper who knew everyone's business, remembered everyone's credit, and was kind enough not to mention either unless pressed. Born March 3, 1928 in Buffalo, New York, Conley was 44 when he first stepped behind Godsey's counter, holding that role across the full run of the series, and a late appearance in Castaway in 2000, alongside Tom Hanks, gave him a final theatrical footnote. Dementia took him gradually, and on July 7, 2013, he died at 85, with his ashes returned to his family. Wilford Brimley arrived in 1974 as Horace Brimley, the gruff but warm cousin who brought rugged comfort to his guest appearances, and the combination of bluntness and genuine warmth that defined that role followed him through the rest of his career. Born September 27, 1934, in Salt Lake City, Utah, Brimley later starred in Cocoon in 1985 and became famous as the face of Quaker Oats, a spokesperson role that made him feel like a neighbor to the whole country. A kidney condition weakened him over 2 months, and on August 1, 2020, he died in St. George, Utah, at 85, with his ashes returned to his family. Peggy Ray's connection to the Waltons began with a small landlady role and expanded in 1979 when she joined permanently as Rose Burton, Olivia Walton's cousin, a cheerful, grounding presence who filled the emotional space left by departing cast members. Born March 31, 1921, in Los Angeles, California, Ray was also beloved as Lulu Hogg on The Dukes of Hazzard, warmth being a quality she carried across every production. Heart failure took her on February 5, 2011, in Toluca Lake, California, at 89, and she was buried at Santa Barbara Cemetery in Santa Barbara. Sheila Allen played Fanny Tatum, the telephone operator who kept information moving across Walton's Mountain the way wire keeps a fence standing, invisibly essential. Born February 2, 1929 in New York City, Allen carried an additional connection to Hollywood history through her husband, producer Irwin Allen, who produced The Poseidon Adventure in 1972, a film in which she also appeared as Nurse Gina Rowe. An extended battle with pulmonary fibrosis ended on November 15, 2013, when she died at her Malibu home at 84, and she was buried at Mount Sinai Memorial Park in Hollywood Hills. Ralph Waite's John Walton Sr. was not a performance that asked for your attention. It simply held it, through the quiet authority of a man playing a patriarch who understood that strength does not require announcement. Born June 22, 1928 in White Plains, New York, Waite first took on that role at 44 and carried it through the entire series, later building a second loyal audience through his recurring role as Hank Booth on NCIS. Natural causes took him on February 13, 2014, in Palm Desert, California, at 85, and he was buried at White Plains Rural Cemetery in New York. James Gammon appeared as Zach Roswell at 33, and his gravel road voice made even small scenes on the mountain feel weighted with backstory. Born April 20, 1940, in Newman, Illinois, Gammon became best known to later audiences as Lou Brown, the battered baseball manager in Major League in 1989. A performance built entirely on weathered specificity that cannot be manufactured. Adrenal gland and liver cancer ended his life on July 16, 2010, at 70, and his remains were cremated. Rance Howard played Dr. MacGyver in 1973 at 44, the steadfast country doctor who treated both injuries and anxieties with the same steady professionalism, bringing to that role the quiet craft he had developed across decades in American film and television. Born November 17, 1928, in Duncan, Oklahoma, Howard appeared in The Andy Griffith Show, Cool Hand Luke, and Chinatown, played a recurring role in Gentle Ben from 1967 to 1969, and is also the father of director Ron Howard and actor Clint Howard. A West Nile virus infection complicated an existing heart condition, and on November 25, 2017, he died in Los Angeles at 89. Hollywood Forever Cemetery holds his remains. Adrienne Martin brought a refined warmth to Mrs. Breenage, the music-loving widow who recognized Jason Walton's talent and chose to encourage it at the right moment. Born September 2, 1909 in Cleveland, Ohio, Martin had appeared decades earlier in The Bachelor and The Bobby Soxer in 1947, working opposite Cary Grant and Shirley Temple. Natural causes took her on November 9, 1978, at 69, during the show's later seasons, and she was laid to rest at Westwood Memorial Park in Los Angeles. Mary Earle was 83 years old when she appeared in 1972 as Ma Gormley, the endearing eccentric whose folk songs, coconut pies, and pet goat Myrtle gave Walton's Mountain some of its most purely cheerful moments. Born May 13, 1889 in Morrow, Ohio, Earle also appeared in Crazy Mama in 1975, displaying a livelier register than her gentle mountain neighbor usually required. Colon cancer surgery led to complications, and uremic poisoning took her on November 4, 1984, at 95, with Green Lawn Cemetery in Columbus, Ohio, serving as her final resting place. Dorothy Shea brought to Thelma, the first owner of the Dewdrop Inn, the kind of lived-in authority that belongs to someone who has actually built something. Born April 11, 1921, in Jacksonville, Florida, Shea had become known across the country as the Park Avenue Hillbilly after her 1947 comedic song Feudin' and Fightin' cracked the top 5 on the charts and turned her into a sensation. A heart attack took her on October 22, 1978, in Santa Monica, California, at only 57, and the Waltons writers honored her passing by writing Thelma off with the explanation that she had sold the Dewdrop Inn and moved to California. Westwood Village Memorial Park in Los Angeles is where she rests. Kip Niven arrived in 1979 as Reverend Tom Marshall, the gentle pastor who stepped into the spiritual leadership of Walton's Mountain after Reverend Fordwick's departure, holding that role with a low-key steadiness that served the show's final seasons well. Born May 27, 1945, in Kansas City, Missouri, Niven spent a decade as Steve Marsh on the sitcom Alice from 1976 to 1985 and appeared in Magnum Force in 1973 alongside Clint Eastwood, establishing a career built on reliable, grounded performances. A heart attack took him suddenly on May 6, 2019, at 73, and his ashes were returned to his family. John Crawford was 52 when he first appeared as Sheriff E.P. Bridges in 1972, bringing to that role a no-nonsense manner that never quite concealed the fairness underneath. Born September 13, 1920, in Colfax, Washington, Crawford appeared in The Poseidon Adventure in 1972, and in Night Moves in 1975 alongside Gene Hackman, building a reputation for grounded, unglamorous authority across both film and television. A stroke ended his life on September 21, 2010, at 90, and his ashes were returned to his family. Lou Brown played Mr. Jarvis, the used car dealer whose business ethics put Ben Walton's moral instincts through their paces when he joined the cast in 1977, at 48. Born March 18, 1925, in Gould, Oklahoma, Brown's film credits included Airport in 1970, Topaz in 1969, and Colossus, The Forbin Project, in 1970, a body of work that positioned him consistently as the kind of supporting presence that holds a scene together. Lung cancer took him on July 27, 2014, at 89. A military funeral was held at Fort Rosecrans in San Diego on August 15th of that year, and his remains were cremated. Diana Douglas appeared as Mrs. Denman, the poised and affluent visitor whose brief stay at the Walton home quietly reoriented how class and kindness intersected on the mountain, and she brought to that guest role the natural authority that had carried her through decades on screen. Born January 22, 1923, in Devonshire, Bermuda, Douglas appeared in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles in 1987, and she was 56 when she came to Walton's Mountain. Cancer took her on July 3, 2015, at 92, and per her wishes, her ashes were scattered over Bermuda. Ivor Francis played Dean Raymond Beck in 1975, the firm but not unkind college administrator whose relationship with John Boy Walton's academic ambitions was built on genuine respect rather than simple opposition. Born October 26, 1918, in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, Francis maintained a long career in American television, appearing in I Dream of Jeannie, The Odd Couple, Barney Miller, and Happy Days, among many other productions. And he was 56 when he took on the role of Dean Beck. Cancer took him on October 22, 1986, at 67, and he was laid to rest at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California. Pearl Scheer appeared in 1973 as Zelicha Dunar, the wealthy recluse whose unusual demands masked a genuine warmth that the mountain community eventually found its way to, and she brought that same appetite for unconventional characters to Gypsy in 1962, Raid on Entebbe in 1976, and Remington Steele in 1982. Born April 19, 1918, in New York City, Scheer was 58 when she joined the Waltons cast for that memorable guest appearance. Natural causes took her on July 27, 2009, at 91, a quiet exit for a performer who rarely chose the quiet option when another was available. Every actor in this tribute came from somewhere different: Buffalo and Bermuda, Salt Lake City and Toronto, Jacksonville and South Bend. And each one found their way to the same fictional mountain in Virginia, where the stories they helped tell have outlasted them all. Television drama works when you believe in the people on the screen, and these performers made belief easy. That is not a small thing. That is the whole thing.